So even if you just get the decline version of Deebo, nevertheless, what you got in 23, where you got nearly 900 yards receiving for Samuel and 7 touchdowns and averaged over 6 yards a carry again, you're still looking at a pretty significant upgrade. Let's go to Ty to get us started, and then we'll get to more calls. Again, the number 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Ty, get us started. Who do you think is going to overachieve based off what the public thinks in 2025?
Hey, Craig, how you doing? Thanks for taking my call.
You got it.
Hey, but I wasn't too excited about the pick, but I think Deebo. I started looking at it, them screens, some of them routes the kids was getting last year. I think Deebo's going to be able to be that third option coming across the field as Jaden, breaks off and creating stuff off there. I just think Deebo is going to be set up for one of his best years of life. Same numbers as his first 2 years, third, fourth year weren't that great, but I think, this year Deebo is going to surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by Deebo, Ty. I think it's a great shout. Thanks for the call. Like, Deebo's not going to have his best season of his career because his best season in 2021 is like, if he does that every year, he's a Hall of Famer. Like he was unbelievable that season, and he had incredible weapons around him. Kyle was scheming it up, and not that Cliff can't scheme it up, but Deebo was in his peak physical athletic prime. He stayed super healthy, and the results were absolutely magical. He was a first team AP All-Pro. He's not going to do that, but he could be really good. Like 1,000 yards feels probably out of reach, but if you tell me he's going to get it, I would say there's more surprising things that could happen. But I think something around the 800 yards, and if people think that he's like cooked and is going to be a 500-yard receiver, like I would say you are underestimating the ability to create in this offense for a player like this. I do think the fact that someone like Olamide Zaccheaus had such a great season last year, that the way they used De'Ami Brown, like there's a higher availability in this offense. And I think the other component that is big time, that when Deebo is at his best, was really important in San Francisco, is he's not the featured piece. When Deebo can be the featured piece functionally, but when you get on the board and you're having your defensive meetings and you're talking about that best year that he had in San Francisco, you're talking about the running backs, you're talking about some deep threats, you're talking about this, you're talking about that. And then it's like, and they're going to get the ball to 19 a million ways. And now, for him, now we're number one here, it's like, we got to worry about 17. We got to worry about 86. We know they're going to run the ball a ton. And then keep your eyes out for Deebo. And like him being not necessarily the primary focus of defenses, I think will benefit him a lot and hopefully allow him some space to operate and some advantageous matchups. And then we'll see if they have enough else in the receiving room to really create the extra space with guys like Jalen Lane, even as a rookie who might have the ability to stretch the field a little bit with some pure speed. Nevertheless, if Gallup comes back and is good, we'll see what Noah Brown can do in his second year in this system with Jaden. Like Anthony, they have a very interesting, is the word I would use, very interesting receiver room.
No, we do. That's a lot of versatile players in that room. A lot of playmakers as well. I do want to touch on the caller saying Deebo might have, his best season yet. I think some people forget that, Christian McCaffrey wasn't there just yet the year he had his breakout year. And Elijah Mitchell has struggled with injuries. So Deebo was more so thrust into a role where, they wanted to put the ball in, their best playmakers' hands. And that meant being at wide receiver. That also meant being at running back. So I don't necessarily think we'll need Deebo for that role just because we also have, a lot of playmakers. We have the Austin Eckler's, the B-Robs, and then you also got Terry and, Zach Ertz. Like, we have a lot of weaponry to, be able to spread the ball, not to mention Jaden Daniels.
Right, and, he'll have some keepers. He'll have this, he'll have that. I mean, Deebo in 2021, just so folks remember the sheer numbers here, the sheer volume here, Deebo in 2021 had 121 targets and and 59 rushes. So that is 170 attempts at him being a dynamic playmaker. 121 targets plus 59 rushing attempts. So he was 77 catches on those 121 targets for 1,405 yards. He averaged 18 yards a reception, had 6 touchdowns, and then he was 59 rushes, 365 yards, had 8 rushing touchdowns that season. He averaged 6.2 a carry. So we're talking about averaging 18 a catch, 6.2 a carry. There can't be many other, if any, other seasons in the history of the NFL. In fact, I'm going to look it up in the break and see if I can find if there's ever been that before, because it just feels like such a preposterous thing, especially if I were to put volume indicators or volume traps on it, where it's like, are you averaging 18 a catch and 6.2 a carry on at least 50 catches and 50 rushes? It's not happening. It's a one-of-a-kind season in the history of the NFL, if I had to guess. So the rest of his career, you're somewhere between 11.5 and 15 yards a catch, and much closer to, 2 years ago he had 6.1 a carry. He had 5.5 a carry. Last year was only 3.2. So his yardage on the carries is fluctuating significantly more. And I do think that he'll have a pretty good season carrying it this year, because they're going to get him some good looks. And how they deploy him, I think, is going to be fascinating. I think there'll be times that he and Eckler wind up being like interchangeable pieces. Jalen Lane is another guy who can fit that role. So like they're going to have some interesting formations and interesting ways to isolate Deebo, create good angles in the rush game for him, all that kind of stuff. But to expect it to be like 2021, I think is just incredibly far-fetched. But again, it's worth mentioning. And in 2022 and in 2024, he had 632 in 22. He was banged up some of that year, and 670 yards last year in 2024. That would still have been second on the team amongst receivers in receiving for Washington last season. So even if you just get the decline version of Deebo, nevertheless, what you got in 23, where you got nearly 900 yards receiving for Samuel and 7 touchdowns and averaged over 6 yards a carry again, you're still looking at a pretty significant upgrade based off what you had last season.
This is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.